Yeah, hello, you're welcome to another broadcast. My name is Hilary Away, and today we are going to be concluding on the series we started some weeks ago with respect to righteousness and how a believer can walk in the righteousness of God. Please feel free to like, share the video, and also subscribe to my channel. God bless you as you do that. All right, so as we conclude today, we started by establishing certain truths. All right. We started by giving a biblical perspective to what righteousness is all about. Because there are many people today, many believers today, who are finding it difficult to exhibit or showcase the righteousness of God because their foundational knowledge of righteousness is wrong. What they believed was righteousness is wrong. So the application becomes very complex and it becomes almost not applicable, for them. All right. So we gave a biblical context of what righteousness is, and we said that righteousness, because God is righteousness, where God stands is the right standing. So God calls the believer who was formerly a sinner to himself, to his position. All right. So righteousness is not predicated on the foundation of the believer's works, or righteousness is not born out of the foundation of the believer's works or his performance. Righteousness is bettered on the foundation of God's position. So the believer is righteous not because he did anything that gave him that attainment of righteousness. No. The believer is righteous because he's standing where God stands. And when we talk about a believer showcasing or exhibiting the righteousness of God, what are we simply saying? We are not saying that the believer is creating his own standards or that what he did for himself, his acts, is what creates that righteousness. No. So when we say a believer is replicating the righteousness of God, what are we simply saying? He's showcasing what is in God. He's showcasing what God has done. He's showcasing what God has done. He's showcasing what he has seen as he stands in the position of God. So a believer's righteousness is attributed to God, not even to himself, not even to the believer, so that there will be no boasting. So you are righteous as a believer because you are showcasing what you have seen in God by virtue of your position in God, not by virtue of what you have done. So all glory goes to God. So it's very important that we know that, so that when we are discussing about a believer exhibiting the righteousness of God, we can have the right form of knowledge and it becomes very, very easily applicable in our lives. So the last point I want to share to us today, I have discovered that many believers, some of them, they find it difficult to showcase the righteousness of God. It becomes a burden to showcase the righteousness of God. It looks as if you are sentencing them, or you want them to live a boring life. The righteousness of God is not boring. It's the sweetest thing anybody can experience. And in my studies, I've discovered that for us to showcase the righteousness of God, we must have the right focus. We must have the right focus. And that is why God did not call us unto something else. God called us unto himself. And the calling unto himself is not just to remain in that position and be dormant or docile. He called us unto himself so that we can understudy him, so that he becomes our new information source. That is why he calls us unto himself. And that's why he says, look unto me. Because there's a saying that what you look at will gradually shaping you to who you become. All right? So if you see a believer who is complaining about the spirit of lust, He's complaining about being very loose sexually. Many a times when you go deep down to try to find out what the problem is, you'll find out that such believers are watching pornography. You cannot be watching pornography and you are complaining of the spirit of lust. You cannot be watching pornography and think that what you are watching is not shaping your character. So that is why God called us unto himself, so that we will be focused on him. He will become our only source of information. Let us look at what Hebrews 12:1-2 says. It says, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witness, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So the writer in Hebrew is telling us to look away from those things that we used to know while we were yet in sin. While we were in sin, we were feeding on certain information that even made us to become more sinful and more rebellious against God. So when God calls us unto himself, we have to depart. We have to take our focus out of such sources, okay, and look unto Jesus, who is our perfect example. The more we look unto him, what does it mean that we should look unto Jesus? It means look at who I am. Understudy me. Make me your focus. And I will tell you genuinely, there is no one who walks with God that does not have access to information with respect to God. Because the knowledge of God is inexhaustible. So the more we put our focus on God, the more we are being changed into the personality of God. The more we begin to reflect the character, the nature of God. But when our focus is away from God, it becomes difficult to live the life of righteousness. There are many believers today, their focus is away on Jesus. Their focus is far away from God. And they are complaining, I've tried. No, change your focus. That is the message for today. Change your focus, okay? Change your focus. Laws will not make you live righteously. Laws will not make you live righteously. Laws are meant for sinners. But a believer in Christ is called to look unto Jesus, to look unto God, which means God becomes your information base. And the more you look at him, the more you are transformed into his image. And the more you are transformed into his image, the more you begin to reflect his character effortlessly. That is what grace does. That is what grace does. You see people today who are living righteously, not because they are struggling to live a righteous life, not because they have do's and don'ts. No. They are being transformed to the image of God because their focus is on God. That is my message for you today. You want to live the life of God, you want to live that life of righteousness, you have to change your focus. Take your focus away from every weight of sin. Take away your focus from every weight of sin. Anything that you cannot find in God should not have your attention. Anything you cannot find in God should not have your attention. Take your eyes away from it and look unto Jesus. The more you look unto Jesus, the more you are transformed into his image and his likeness. And the more you are transformed into his image and his likeness, the more you will reflect the life of righteousness effortlessly. And I pray that the Lord will help us to showcase his good works, because that is why we are here on the earth. That's why we are saved. We are saved to showcase the goodness of God, so that everyone that sees us we give glory to our Father in heaven. God bless you and do have a wonderful day. Bye.